Hello, hello, Youest You listener. This is Julie. I am gratefully your host, and this is my second solo episode of the year. Happy February to you. And I just want to give you a heads up if you're watching this or listening, you might hear a little extra sound in the background from my sweet little kitty, Luna, who is just wanting to be with me while I'm doing this. You might see her little face show up in the camera. It's so cute. And I was just thinking about, as I was preparing for this talk today, about raising your prosperity quotient, your abundance quotient, that it's really about being in tune with what you already have and appreciating that. And so one of the areas that I feel really grateful and abundant is love, and having that love from, from others around me, my children, family, but also from my pet, from my beautiful, sweet cat, Luna. If you're watching, she's licking my hand. I think she knows we're talking about her. So welcome, welcome. For those of you who might be new to the show, my name is Julie Reisler. I am the host of the You-est You podcast. And really, this is a place to come and to really dive deep, to hear from others, from myself, but to hear from your own soul, to really tap into your higher purpose, your strengths, your gifts, your unique brilliance. I am obsessed with this idea of each of us having this treasure box within us, that it's like a seedling, like an acorn, where there's just incredible potentiality. For me, one of the things that drives me every single day is this idea of, like, I would never want to get to the end. Hopefully, we're talking the 90s, maybe in my hundreds, where I would feel that I missed the opportunity to really tap into my gifts and my highest calling. And so, this whole show is about you discovering and uncovering your higher self, your calling, your heart's desires. And so I try to bring on a lot of different guests that can come from different experiences and angles and backgrounds and inspiration. And the goal is for you to see yourself in all of these interviews and to ask new questions. What we know is when you ask new questions, you start to get new results and new ideas and new thoughts. So my desire is for you to come away today with a new way of feeling and looking at prosperity, at abundance. This is a topic that is really near and dear to my heart. I'm going to share a little bit about my story and a recent experience I've had around prosperity. And I would just love to hear your feedback, your comments after, if how this might have helped you or any questions you might have. So put on your seatbelt and enjoy this interaction that I'm going to have with you. I'm really honored to be the one sharing today. I think in terms of raising our prosperity quotient, even that idea, first, the most important thing to get, and this is something that has taken me a lot of time, time in recovery, is understanding that at the bottom of prosperity, of abundance, is really getting worthiness, your worthiness, that you and I are worthy inherently, for no reason other than you were born here, for no other reason that you said yes to being on this planet in this time space sequence, just as you are right now. And so I've done a lot of time playing with worthiness and feeling not worthy enough, and building that capacity, and really getting that we're all worthy. And so I really believe at the bottom of abundance, of prosperity, is worthiness, is realizing your divinity, your sacred essence. When you start to feel that and know that, that's when you and we can start tapping into the natural flow we call abundance. I've said this before. I really believe Mother Nature is our best teacher. When you walk outside, if you notice, no matter what the season, there is always an abundance something going on, of growth, of change, of releasing, of letting go. There's a natural ebb and flow. If you think of the infinity symbol, there's a giving and a receiving. There's a constant flow of in and out. The ocean does this, the in and the out, the tide of the ebb and flow of the waves. You look at trees, they're trees that grow next to each other in abundance. There's not a comparison, right? No, you don't have a tree comparing herself to the tree next to her. What we know from research is they share resources. There's a collaboration that's happening underneath with the roots. And there are different times of the year when you're going to see more of an outward abundance of, the flourishing of leaves and flowers in the springtime and the summertime, the harvesting of crops, of insects. And then there are times when she goes within. And we also know of this, if you've done any kind of study of Eastern tradition, the yin and the yang. Yin is about going within, yang is that outward expression. So I like to think of Mother Nature as really the teacher of abundance, of prosperity. And when you look to her and you really study, just take a walk outside and notice what's happening, there's an abundance. Like, I was walking this morning, and just, the trees, the grass, even in the dead of winter, there's an abundance of grass. There's an abundance of uh, branches, and abundance of sky and air. We don't really think about the fact that we're breathing and there's always enough air, right? There's always enough air for you and I to breathe in. We're not worried. I hope not. I'm not worried that there's not going to be enough air for me or for you. I trust that there's always going to be enough. In fact, there's an abundance, there's plentiful. And this has been the work I've been doing, quite a bit of my own inner recovery around money and prosperity. And even you could put time in there, prosperity and abundance of time, not feeling like you are deading in time. Um, Other kinds of abundance of health, of opportunities, of experiences to grow yourself, and then of money. And so raising your prosperity quotient, it's really first affirming that you deserve prosperity. The first thing to do is to affirm that deservingness, that worthiness. So that's why I want to go there first, is really getting that you and I are worthy because we were born. I have a offering and a prayer I say every morning. I say this for myself and for others, that may I remember that I'm worthy of love and blessings and abundance. And may every person I come into contact with remember that as well. And may I remember that and shine that for all of us. So if that speaks to you, you could take that on as a affirmation or declaration. So getting to that worthiness and that knowingness that you deserve prosperity. Again, going to Mother Nature if you need it, as a reminder. Some of us, like, you might have had stories growing up that had you feel uncomfortable around prosperity. I shared a story recently. For those of you who get my emails, you might have seen I shared a little story. I grew up in a really it was very chaotic around financial abundance and prosperity. I grew up in a very affluent area outside of Boston. Really gratefully in a community and area with excellent education, a lot of great friends. Most, if not all of my friends had two homes, like literally two homes, one for skiing, one for the summer. Some had three. My parents, were barely making it in our one home. My dad, loved my dad, is a former Vietnam veteran, had undiagnosed PTSD, bipolar, depression, all of it undiagnosed. I'll tell you, as an empath, it was challenging growing up. Even though he was so loving to me, I could always feel the sadness there. And what would happen is, he would buy things that he couldn't afford to feel better and to feel like that would help him in his business. And it ended up putting us in a stressful situation. It was not his fault. He did the best he could, but had a trouble, had a tough time managing finances. But more importantly, it was really rooted in worthiness. And I think what always was so hard for me was to observe my dad, who I was in love with. He was like my best friend, still someone I cherish and look up to. I knew he was worthy. He didn't. And it affected his seeing himself not good enough next to others. And especially in an area where literally most people are, really financially beyond stable and thriving. And then I had a mother, that my mom, who came from a well-to-do entrepreneurial background and could care less about money, and could care less about the car she drove, and really just didn't care. And so had that going on, and then had my grandmother who would swoop in and always would save the day. So I had a lot of interesting stories around money. That's a little bit about mine. And I know for me, as an empath, as a highly sensitive person, the way that I dealt with those feelings of not good enough, of feeling unstable, of, my dad would announce that, he had lost his job, or was out of a job again, or starting a new business. And we would go months without him having a job. My mom might pick up, part-time work. She was a music teacher, but she wanted to stay at home with my sister and I. And so it was just, there was a lot of chaos, and instability around money. Not around love. I always felt very loved, but around money and prosperity, it felt very up and down. And then there'd be times he would do well for a few months, or we would get an influx of money, and all of a sudden it felt like, we had a lot of it, and then it would be gone. And so, just growing up with that really created stories around prosperity. For me, a lot of it was, seeing others had it. I felt like, I'm not sure it was for me, like I was able to, but I would see others having, and I had to do a lot of work around worthiness and deserving, and getting that this is something that is a birthright for all of us, and feeling comfortable around it. So I just invite you to think about your own money story, your own prosperity story. How were you raised? What were the stories that you were told, or that you observed? What was it like with your family? If you had a mother and father, or maybe you lived with relatives, or experienced differences in, one family having great wealth and one in poverty. My dad's family, a farming family in the Midwest, you know, really kind of lived paycheck to paycheck. They were fine, but very different experience than my mom's side, which had, businesses that had flourished. And, I remember I had a distant cousin, that lived in the penthouse in the Ritz-Carlton in New York City. And I would see that. And then, go home to we lived in a ranch house. I just, it's hard to explain, but where I grew up, most people lived in Victorian mansions. And then there were like three little ranch houses, and we were one of them. So, I think about that, making meaning, comparing. It was like always there for me, because you couldn't miss it. And what I did is I made it mean something. That's what we do as human beings. If we're not aware and awake and conscious, we'll take stories, we'll take situations, and we'll make meaning. And for me, it really affected I let it affect my level of feeling good enough. And as I said, that deserving. So think about your own stories, how you grew up. Maybe it was the shows you watched, the community you grew up in, your religion, um, the people that exemplified wealth. Were they those that were kind and generous? Were they, typified as greedy or arrogant, or somewhere in between? I remember, you think about like Gilligan's Island, that's way back when. I watched a little bit, and they showed the couple that was wealthy as being, not nice and greedy and mischievous. And it's like, that sends messages. I was lucky to grow up in an affluent area where people were really kind and big-hearted and generous. And so I had some of that in my story, but it's like a soup, right? All different ingredients. So I think the beginning is to really know and affirm your worthiness, and know that you're deserving of whatever abundance you would like to call in. And then number two is to start to look into your own background, your story, to do a high level curiosity kind of research and development, R&D. How were you raised? What was that like? What were the messages? What did you believe? What do you believe now? And then, when we move from there, so we do kind of this inventory, then we start to look at, okay, what's happening now? What am I seeing? I like to think that anything happening in my life, anything happening, has everything to do with my own internal thoughts and beliefs. The beautiful thing, and I'm a big fan of Louise Hay. I listen to her often. I know she has transitioned and passed on, but I feel her with me almost every day. And She did a lot of this prosperity work, and she really brought this to the forefront through the New Thought movement, through her own work and healing by looking at your thoughts. Your thoughts can be changed. That's the beautiful thing. So if you have a lack thought, a lack consciousness thought, and I saw for me, I did, in many ways, that can be changed. It just takes time. It takes intention. It takes attention and awareness. So you really want to do a thorough research on those lack thoughts. And the best way to do that is to look at today, do a little spot check. Where are you? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of prosperity consciousness? Is it are you down on the 1 level, like not so much? Maybe you're at a 9 or a 10, and really get honest with yourself where you are in that spectrum. The thing I would warn you of is not to be mean to yourself. Just be compassionate. We're just looking and seeing. So I've done that over and over again. And something that happened to me last year is I did a spot check and I was looking at my own life and I realized that I had this belief in my business. I'm in love with what I'm doing. I love helping and serving and coaching and speaking and anything that's going to add heart, energy, and help you and others and all of us to be more in tune with our higher self. And I started this interesting pattern where I was making more and more money, very prosperous in my business, but I was making less and less for myself. And so a term for that is self-debting. And I was self-debting and I had to look at it because it was really kind of frustrating. I would be making more and more in my gross and less in my net. And something said, my higher self, my inner wisdom was like, Julie, you've got to look at this. There's something going on because what I know is you and we're all made of energy. And we're also, the outer world is reflecting the inner world. Those thoughts that you're having, that I'm having, are reflecting what's happening. So I really had to look at my thoughts. I had to look at what did I believe? And lo and behold, doing a lot of work, reading books like Money, a Love Story by Kate Northrup, and It's Not Your Money by Tosha Silver, some other great books, getting back into my 12-step recovery program and talking about this, working with my dear friend, Reverend Francis Faden, who does a lot of healing work. And together and through a lot of support, I started to look at these beliefs. I'm like, oh my God, somewhere I believe that to serve at a big level, I don't deserve to make that money. I need to give it to everybody else. Um, and that I saw it and it was like, wow, that is not true. But I kept seeing the pattern over and over again over the last 5, 6 years. And on the outside, I mean, gratefully, my business has expanded. It's been doing really well. But inside, to keep seeing the amount that I was making and leaving for myself was almost nothing. And so I had a pure miraculous shift. They say in the Course in Miracles that a miracle is a shift in perspective. So this is the thing, my Youest You listeners, my dear soul family. You and we can have a miracle in any moment. It doesn't have to be this like, crazy moment where everything, changes and there's fireworks. It can just be like, oh my gosh, I have a change in perspective. And that is considered a miracle. And that's what happened. And I realized I had forgotten that I am also part of the equation, that I'm meant to be prosperous, not just those that I'm hiring and that are working with me and for me. And so I'm just sharing this with you in case it helps you. The moment I realized that, I had the idea to finally get the courage to start my Life Designer Coaching Academy. I'd had the idea for a while, but didn't think I really had. I just, had felt like, I don't know if I have what it takes to do it, and a lot of doubt. And in that moment, I realized, no, I have everything it takes. I've been coaching for over 10 years. I've got a master's degree in coaching. I teach at Georgetown. Like I actually have expertise in coaching. I can do this. And I would love to add some of the energy work and intuition into it. And it was in that time frame when I had this miraculous shift that I started this program. And lo and behold, it filled up and I got to teach incredible big hearted souls how to become coaches, life designer coaches. And I realized, I had talked to Mike Michalowicz. If you guys have heard the interview, I've done 2 with him, who wrote Profit First. I revisited those ideas, concepts, and I started to pay myself. Now, you might think that is crazy, Julie. Why were you not doing that? Well, it was not conscious. I just had made it up that I didn't deserve to get paid, and I would pay myself very minimally. It was literally like I was making less than minimum wage and my business was making six figures and beyond. So it didn't make any sense. Another great book, by the way, if you have ever struggled with under earning, is Overcoming Under Earning. I will be interviewing Barbara Stanny. She's the author. She also wrote Sacred Success. She will be, I'm going to be interviewing her in February and soon in this month. And she is amazing. And I just resonated so much with her teachings and her work. And it's all about this. It's overcoming this under earning, which is really rooted in getting that you and I are meant to be prosperous, that we are by our birthright. We are inherently, because we are connected to Mother Nature, to Mother Earth. That's how we're designed. And a great way to tap into your prosperity is to affirm the well-being in your body. So one of the ways I started to make this shift was to really I am already prosperous in many ways, but even throughout my, all the organs that are working, all my cells and the blood supply and the veins and the different systems that are working together on my behalf without me even paying for it. So I started to realize, my gosh, you can't even put a price tag on your body. Billions of dollars wouldn't come close. So I started to tap into that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's priceless. Our bodies, our lives are priceless. Now, it might sound like really trite to you, but this was a total shift in consciousness, a miracle for me. And I started to pay myself. I started to affirm my well-being. I started to do a prosperity appreciation search. I would look for all the ways I'm prosperous, and I would just invite you to do that. I started tracking it, right? Like to write down all the different ways that I have abundance in my life, with the love, with my family, in my body, the opportunities, the people I'm meeting in my business, living in the United States, in a free country, all of the ways. It was nonstop. Um, like every day I could find new things to be grateful for. And it started to raise not just what I'm calling my prosperity quotient, my PQ, but it also started to raise my real connection to my heart and to my higher self and to the divine. And that has been the biggest shift. So we talked about affirming your prosperity. We talked about looking at your story around money, how you were raised, what did you believe, what did you think was true? And then we talked about looking at where you are right now, doing a spot check, looking at your life, looking at, are you aware of your finances? So for me, there was just like complete vagueness for a lot of time. Even in my business, I just was going on magical thinking. It's just going to work out, divine timing, which I do believe in. But there is a sacred aspect to numbers and to being clear. And so I started tracking them. I started to note them and to be thankful for them. I started to pay myself, and I started to shift my prosperity quotient. And so I just share this. I hope this is helpful. And the last piece is then tuning into what does your heart desire? What's the prosperity that you would like to call in this year? I really believe that you and I are extensions of the divine. We are all different lights, points of the divine. And for me, life is it's a spiritual game, and it's about co-creating with the divine and my higher self and myself. It's about all of us merging. That is, for me, the definition of my meest me is really converging and co-creating and aligning with this higher power, this power greater than myself, and asking every day, surrendering and asking, how can I serve for myself and at the highest level of all those on the planet? And then listening and taking that kind of inspired action. And I believe that this divine higher power, the universe, divine matrix, whatever you call it, God, goddess, is abundant in nature, that we have been in a society and conditioned to feel that there's lack, and to believe that you have to get by and to succeed through competition and cutting people down and comparing. And I have found that just brings fear and misery. So my invitation to you is to look at the other side, look at abundance and prosperity, which the qualities there are cooperation and collaboration and community. How can you add more of that in your life? So I will share a recent quick story before I wrap this up, before I go on too long, and appreciate you listening and being here. I recently had a situation with my car. I drove a SUV. The engine light went on. I had decided in November for fun I was going to test drive a Tesla, and I just love them. I love Nikola Tesla. I've kind of studied him. I loved what he stood for. I'm really big into anything that's going to be loving and kind to Mother Earth and eco-friendly. And I just thought, wow, wouldn't that be fun? I'll just test drive one and someday. And lo and behold, a week later, my engine light went on. I took it in. I have a mechanic and I took it in. I took it in 4 times. They paid me back. They did all this work on it, paid me back. They said, we cannot figure out what's going on. Something is up, but we can't find it. Took it to the Toyota dealership. They also could not figure it out. And all of a sudden I got this little like nudge knowing download that was like, it's time to get a new car. Now, what came to heart was, well, wait a minute. This car's fine. It's great. It's working. Like, who am I to get a new car? I don't need one. It's the winter. But I kept hearing, no, Julie, it's time for a new car. Look into that Tesla. Just look into the one that you had test drove. And lo and behold, there are different levels, and there's a basic model that I really had loved. And turns out I could trade my car in, and it ended up being almost a very similar payment as what I was paying with my other car. And here I was thinking it would be a year or two. And I will share that just recently I got this new car. And what happened is really interesting to watch. I had so many signs to get it. I will spare everyone, but we'll definitely post some of those really, really powerful divine signs. And I got the car, sitting there with my husband Heath. We're in there in the front seat, and I was so excited. And then I had this voice that was like, "Who do you think you are?" Just a little preview. I'm writing a book called Who Does She Think She Is? It's all about this. And of course, what I've seen is whenever I start to work on something, I notice all my crap comes up in my face around that topic. So I had that voice, who does she think she is? And I was really just in fear. Like, what did I do? This is like super flashy, and I don't need flashy. And I just wanted a car that's eco-friendly. And oh my gosh, I have to figure out what the chargers are, and just freaking out. I'll be honest, like really scared. And then I took some breaths. I made some calls. I sat with myself, and I realized and remembered that we are worthy, we are inherently prosperous, that I had not done anything wrong, that this is abundance, this is the divine's will, um, and that I had been really mindful. I had saved, I had planned this, and that it was okay. And that worthiness piece just popped right up, and I saw it, and I was like, "Yep, I see you. I still feel it, but I'm going to choose not to feed you. I'm going to choose to feed the side of me that knows that I'm connected to something greater than myself." And so, still getting comfortable with the whole idea of this car, but I'll share that it is so crucial to be mindful of your consciousness. Is it coming from lack? Is it coming from prosperity? I really believe that when we tune into our own inner prosperity, not just in money, but in all areas of life, and we start to affirm and really acknowledge and appreciate it, we flourish, we expand, our light becomes bigger, we become more of a beacon. And my belief is right now, our earth, our culture, society, world is really asking for you and I to shine brighter, to own your own worthiness, to own your prosperity, to own a consciousness of love, of heart, of being prosperous, of the idea that there's enough for all of us. Because when you know that for you, you can know that for others. And so I hope, beautiful soul family, soul sister and brother, that this was helpful for you. I hope that this helps you to look at your own prosperity story and consciousness. Please reach out if this spoke to you, if you have questions, if I can be a greater support. This is actually the week that I'm running a free Sacred Money Challenge in the You-est You Facebook community. It's free. You can sign up at any time. It's at juliereisler.com/Sacred Money Challenge. We are going to really look at this in greater depth. It's something I'm really passionate about. For me, really believe, just like the Marianne Williamson quote says, that it's our light that scares us, right? And stepping into our light means owning our worthiness and prosperity. So Maybe you'll join me there. Let me know how this resonated with you. Let me know about your prosperity stories, your money story, your consciousness shifts, your miracles. And as always, I'm so grateful for you. So thankful to have you in this beautiful You-est You community, and really hoping this touched you, your heart, and adds value and helps you to raise your PQ, your prosperity quotient. From my heart to yours, mwah, so much love.